You're grinding through Cyberpunk 2077 at 4K Ultra, and your Linux rig pumps out 92 frames per second, while Windows 11 chugs at 85. That's the new reality in 2026. We put 10 massive AAA games head-to-head on identical AMD hardware. Linux wins 8 out of 10. Microsoft's gaming throne is slipping fast. It's raw benchmark proof that could save you from frame drops and boost your playtime. AAA games are blockbusters with budgets that could fund small countries. Rockstar dropped $265 million on Grand Theft Auto 5, covering everything from motion capture studios to global marketing blitzes. Your average AAA title these days starts at $50 million, with teams of 100-plus devs grinding for years to deliver Hollywood-level visuals, physics that feel real, and stories that stick with you long after the credits roll. For decades, Windows owned this space exclusively. Linux was a joke for gamers back then. 4% desktop share, and most of that was servers humming in data centers. But flip the script to 2026. Linux is stealing FPS crowns in the games that matter most. Find out how. First up, Cyberpunk 2077 with path tracing ultra cranked. Linux hit a rock-solid 92 frames per second average. Windows managed only 85. That's an 8% edge right there, and it shows in Night City's neon jungle. Buttery smooth, weaving through crowded streets at high speed. No annoying stutter. Ray reconstruction held steady at 60-plus minimums, even during chaotic cyber-psycho takedowns. Windows hitched on those fast camera pans, especially in districts packed with NPCs hawking wares. If you're chasing that immersive cyberpunk fix with all the bells, reflections, crowds, explosions, Linux delivers the frames without the frustration, letting you soak in every detail. Next, Counter-Strike 2 on high settings at 1440p competitive maps. Linux crushed it with 1100 FPS average. Sky-high ceilings for 240Hz monitors. Windows limped in at 980, a solid 12% faster overall. No, real surprise here, Vulkan absolutely shines in esports titles like this, where every millisecond counts. Mouse feel was pinpoint precise. Linux's NT Sync killed any input delay you might notice in clutch 1v3 situations. Flick shots to the head landed cleaner, and those long-range duels across dust, too, felt instantaneous. Windows users reported slight micro-stutters during smokes and Molotovs, but Linux powered through clean frame after frame. Ghost of Tsushima is very high with DLSS quality balanced for sharpness. Linux pulled ahead by 7 FPS during open-world traversal across feudal Japan. Windows started struggling once the foliage density kicked in. Those bamboo forests and windy plains taxed it harder with wind-swept grass. Samurai duels felt incredibly responsive on Linux. Minimums never dipped below 70, even in the rain-soaked castle storms or massive Mongol invasions. The sword clashes had that perfect snap, no frame drops mid-parry or during haiku moments. Windows couldn't keep up with the particle effects from clashing steel, flying leaves, and blood mist. The Last of Us. Part 2, remastered on Ultra, pushing every graphical slider. Linux eked out a 5% lead in the combat-heavy scenes that define it. Seattle's rain-slicked chaos rendered noticeably smoother. Infected swarms and clicker ambushes didn't cause the same frame pacing issues Windows suffered through. Clicking through skulls felt visceral and tense, with consistent 80-plus FPS holding the horror grip tight. Windows faltered during those stealth sections in the hospital, dropping to 65 amid the chaos. Linux kept the emotional weight intact, no hitching to break your focus on Ellie's brutal journey. Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2 on Ultra settings across medieval Bohemia. This one was neck and neck overall, but Linux won the traversal benchmarks by 4 frames per second over vast fields, forests, and muddy roads. Windows edged out slightly in pure melee brawls, maybe by 2 frames per second in sword clashes. But overall, snappiness went to Linux hands down. Horseback chases through snow and rain looked stunning either way. Linux just felt more alive, with better 1% lows during village raids and archery contests. The physics on ragdolls, blood splatter, and dynamic weather held up perfectly, no compromises. The Witcher 3 next-gen update with Ultra Plus ray tracing for global illumination. Windows took a slim 3% lead at 1080p lower res, but Linux flipped the script at 1440p with a 6% gain that mattered. Geralt's mutations during fights and the massive Novigrad crowds favored Vulkan optimizations. Linux handled the NPC density, market banter, and side quests without breaking a sweat. Potion brewing in Skellige storms during blizzards? 75 frames per second locked solid. Windows stuttered on lake reflections and boss encounters with Eridan, where water and fire effects piled up. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden on Ultra, leaning into its supernatural vibes. Linux dominated here, 10% faster, across ghost hunts, curse mechanics, and dialogue, heavy exploration in haunted wilds. Windows Thermal throttled sooner under the particle storms and ethereal effects. Atmospheric horror hit way harder with Linux's stable 80+ FPS. Those spectral apparitions materialized without a hitch, building dread perfectly. Windows dropped to 70 in the swamp chases and ritual scenes, killing the immersion just when tension peaks. Silent Hill 2 remake on high settings to preserve that gritty remake aesthetic. Dead heat at 75 frames per second average, but Linux won the horror tension with flawless 1% lows through psychodrama. Windows had micro stutters creeping through the fog-shrouded apartments and otherworldly shifts. Pyramid Head's pursuit felt janky at times, pulling you out. Linux kept the dread pure, every creak, shadow, and radio static rendered at a steady pace. No distractions when you're piecing together James's shattered psyche. God of War Ragnarok on Ultra, unleashing Norse myth in full fury. Linux surged 9% ahead in those realm-tearing battles against gods. Atreus' arrows flew with crisp precision, and Kratos' axe throws had godly frame delivery every time. Windows couldn't match it. Realm shifts via Bifrost caused 10 FPS dips that disrupted flow. The 9 realms felt truly epic on Linux, with transitions buttery at 85 frames per second average, from icy Midgard to fiery Muspelheim. Finally, Starfield on Ultra, with FSR2 upscaling for vast space. Linux led by 11% in space combat and planetary landings across the settled systems. New Atlanta cityscapes? Silky smooth traversal with no pop-in. Windows stuttered hard on procedural planets. Those vast empty expanses and asteroid fields somehow choked it under load. Ship-to-ship dogfights hit 90 frames per second locked on Linux, giving you the tactical edge in zero-G maneuvers and boarding actions. Final tally, Linux takes 8 decisive wins, Windows grabs just 1 narrow victory, and 1 dead tie for the history books. AMD hardware gives, it had the clear bias here. Sure, but even NVIDIA gaps are closing fast. Intel Arc already hits Windows parity in half these tests on fresh drivers. These aren't cherry-picked synthetics or torture tests. Real gameplay loops, the kind you grind for 50 to 100 hours straight. Your eyes won't lie when you replicate this setup at home. Grab the tools, run the benchmarks, own the truth. Linux isn't flawless yet. Let's keep it real and balanced. Anti-cheat is the biggest wall standing tall. Valorant, Fortnite Battle Royale, some Call of Duty modes, and Apex Legends ranked, straight up blocked on launch. Easy anti-cheat and BattleEye devs are dragging their feet, citing security concerns. If you're a multiplayer sweat-chasing leaderboards and cross-play lobbies, Windows is still your safe bet. No reliable workarounds there without risking permanent bans or kernel-level hacks. NVIDIA cards lag harder on Linux right now. The proprietary drivers don't play as nice with the latest kernels. Expect 15 to 20% behind AMD in these same raster-heavy tests, though ray tracing gaps are narrowing. Intel Arc shows promise for budget builds, but drains laptop battery faster under sustained loads. Setup isn't fully plug-and-play either, even on polished distros. Nobar or Bazite make it way easier than vanilla Ubuntu, but you'll still tweak Proton versions for edge cases, enable game moded for CPU priority, and hunt Proton DB compatibility reports. Not grandma-friendly, and the first-time setup eats an afternoon. Game compatibility hovers at 85% on Steam's vast catalog. That last 15% includes niche titles, obscure DRM schemes, or VR edge cases that need manual fixes. Day 1 releases still favor Windows heavily. Linux Proton ratings and tweaks lag by a week as the community iterates. And while Steam Deck proves handhelds work great for couch co-op, desktop Linux still fights app ecosystems. Discord overlays can glitch on some DES, OBS capture needs environment variables, and browser-based launchers like Epic occasionally balk. But here's the real shift happening under the hood. Those weaknesses are shrinking month by month. BattleEye finally greenlit CS2 fully last quarter. Valorant rumors are swirling strong for late 2026 native support. NVIDIA's upcoming 50 series drivers promise true Vulkan parity across the board. SteamOS 3.5 on desktops via Bazite delivers console-like simplicity with auto-updates. Valve's deck sales, millions shipped, forced every major publisher to test Proton from day 0. CD Projekt Red now ships full Linux builds alongside Windows. Sony's porting God of War natively to Steam Deck standards. Even Ubisoft's dipping toes with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Microsoft's crown? It's not just slipping. The throne room's filling with penguins waddling in confidently. So is Microsoft's gaming dominance officially gone for good? Not entirely across every scenario, but the monopoly's cracked wide open like a shattered DirectX. Relic. Linux crushes AMD single-player AAA on rasterization. Those epic stories you sink 100 hours into, from cyberpunk dystopias to Norse sagas. Windows holds strong for NVIDIA enthusiasts, esports arenas, and plug-and-play convenience on day 1. But the bigger win for gamers? Real choice. No more Windows or bust ultimatums. Steam Deck proved millions want platform freedom. Valve delivered it in just 5 relentless years. Microsoft spent 30 building impenetrable walls. Linux tore them down with open code, community grit, and Vulkan's universal appeal. In 2026, your rig dictates the king without compromise. Rocking an AMD RX series? Go Linux and claim those extra frames? NVIDIA 5090 Beast? Stay Windows for now, but watch the horizon. Make the setup, dual boot until parity hits. But test it yourself tonight. Grab a live USB, install Nobara Fresh, benchmark Cyberpunk or Starfield at your resolution. Numbers don't argue or bend to marketing spin. Gaming's gone multi-OS for real. And Linux just lapped the field in the blockbuster titles that pay the bills and define the medium. If you're already gaming on Linux full-time, drop your GPU model, distro choice, and favorite Proton trick in the comments below. AMD dominant stories? NVIDIA struggle tales? Let's build a mega thread of real user wins. Windows loyalists grinding 509s. What's holding you back from testing the Penguin side? Anti-cheat fears? Setup hassle? Hit me there too, no judgment. Smash that like if these numbers shocked your setup, subscribe for more zero fluff OS showdowns that cut through the hype, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out, frame chasers.